Yes, and you're still tuning to Push Radio 89.5 FM, the mother of all community radio in Africa. Yes, it is time for us to jump into our interview. On the line, I have Frideline. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are.
There we go. Say it, because I was corrected in the beginning. So now I don't like making those mistakes again. So Frideline is from Sonke Gender Justice. That is a non-profit organization aimed to promote gender equality, positive ideas of masculinity and gender, sexual health and reproductive rights and human rights. Hello Frideline, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good day to all your listeners, and thank you for having me on your show.
No problem, no problem. So, just tell us a little bit more about Sonke Gender Justice.
Okay, so firstly, I would like to just give an overview of the organization before I go into the Western Cape work that we do. So Sonke Gender Justice was formed in 2006. We are a women's rights organization that strives towards feminist principles. The organization was formed to address, respond, and to prevent gender-based violence, to look at the challenges we face around gender inequality, and also around the discrimination of people living with HIV and AIDS. The organization is made up of different units. We have a research, monitoring, evaluation, and learning unit. We have a policy development and advocacy unit. Then there's also an operations unit. We also do work regionally, so there's a regional programs network unit. And then finally, we have our community education and mobilization unit. The organization has its footprints in Gauteng, Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga, Western Cape, and then in the region. In the region specifically, we have offices in Uganda, Zambia, DRC, Botswana, Cameroon and others, and then we have a staff component of about 71 staff members. The organizational structure is made up of a board. We have 2 co-executive directors, we have 1 program director, we have unit managers, and then we have the rest of the staff. So I think that is like a bit of an overview of the organization.
Sure, it's all over, eh?
Yeah.
So can you tell us more about how the organization started and also how it developed over the years?
So I've joined the organization about 5 years ago. But when the organization started, it was to address issues around gender-based violence, specifically looking at men, because there was a program that talked about men as partners. And at the time, the focus was more on men, and it was not so much inclusive of women. But obviously, you can't address gender-based violence with men without females. So there was lots of focus on having workshops and educating men around gender-based violence, to also look at how we can bring down the amount of gender-based violence cases that we have within South Africa. So that is how it started, and then it developed from South Africa into the region, and now there is a lot of programs that is going on to address gender-based violence and gender inequality.
Okay. So can you tell us more about how the work Sonke Gender Justice does within the Western Cape and how the organization tackles the gender issues?
Okay. So obviously, the organization cannot work on its own because gender-based violence isn't an issue for one organization. So we also depend and value all the other work around gender-based violence that is going on within the country and in the region. And I think one of the key components of our work is partnership building and networking wherever we operate. And the organization works with a range of structures and organizations to address gender-based violence. Like, for instance, we work with the Department of Community Safety, we work with the Department of Social Development, we work with the City of Cape Town, we work with the Department of Health, with the Department of Education, with SAPs, with ward councillors, with community policing forums, with CBOs, NGOs. Because like I said, it's not something that you can do on your own, you have to work with others as well. So some of the things that the organization are doing is workshops, trainings, information sessions, and we use a gender transformative approach, meaning when you do these sessions and the workshops and the trainings, you have to actively seek to address the issues and the challenges and the underlying causes of gender-based violence, gender inequality, gender in the areas where you do the workshop or with the group that you do the workshop with, and understand the community and how they operate. Then we run a men's wellness center in Guguletu in NY1 on the premises of the NY1 clinic. And at this men's wellness center, the focus is on men's health and wellness. So the center is being run by a male coordinator, a male registered nurse, and male counselors and other staff. And there's a range of activities that is happening there, from the medical side to social, addressing social issues. With the medical side, for instance, there's HIV screening and testing that's being done. People are also screened for STIs and put onto STIs, and then different screenings for different illnesses that is being done. There's a men's support group that is being run. We have community action teams, which is kind of our volunteers from the area that assist the organization working in the area to fulfill our mandate. There's condom distribution that is being done. The staff sits on different community structures and work with different forums like the Guguletu Development Forum, for instance. And then there's different projects that's being run from that center. We also have a refugee health and rights project, and here the focus is on refugees and migrants and non-South Africans. The focus is on education and mobilization, and the project also does condom distribution and community HIV counseling and testing. Then we also have a key population project. And this population, project is focusing on vulnerable groups and key populations, individuals and communities. And they also run community HIV counseling and testing. And with the HIV counseling and testing campaigns that we run, this includes services like diabetes testing, high blood testing, pregnancy testing, STI strip testing, and then your HIV testing. And condom distribution is also being done in these projects.
Sure. Yeah, that's a whole mouthful there. That's a lot to learn. And speaking about learning, how does the organization reach out to educate communities about gender justice?
Well, there's a range of things that we do. We have community organizations that calls us in and request testing or training to be done or workshops to be done. Then we have NGOs that also calls us in to do trainings and workshops. Then we have even the departments that calls us in to come and do trainings. And then we, in the communities where we work, we look for opportunities to do the workshops and the trainings through the different activities that we do, even if it's just going sometimes at a clinic where we do information sessions, because that's also a way to educate people. And then we follow up on requests. We do get a lot of requests for GBV sessions that needs to be done. And then we also have like a kind of a fee for service for organizations that can afford to pay for the service for the GBV sessions that we do. So it's a combination of what we do. But I can say that all the platforms, places and spaces where we're at, we do the message around gender-based violence, gender inequality, and then talk about discrimination around HIV and AIDS.
Educating the masses. That's so dope. So what is the process for Sonke Gender Justice to enhance the lives of boys and men, to help them to see the benefits of transforming gender norms?
Okay, so what we've done now recently is we also work with organizations that work in schools. During the June holidays, we had a advocacy session with learners at Castleflake Comprehensive High School. So this was during the holiday period where different organizations come together and then they do different sessions with the learners. So the session that Sonke Gender Justice was responsible for, and we also do this with other adolescent groups, was to actually make learners think about their community. Having to know their community and understand what is going on within their community. So we would have like breakaway group sessions where some of the task would be to identify the challenges that they have in the community, especially when it comes to violence and gender-based violence. And then the groups would come up with different challenges that they're experiencing within their communities. Like, for instance, some of the groups was talking about the street lights that is not working, and that cause a danger not just for boys and girls, but for anyone in that area. They were talking about houses that is, for instance, standing empty, and then a lot of criminal activities happens in those houses. They talked about all the taverns that they have in their areas. So once the challenges has been identified, then we go into, do you know your community? For instance, youngsters or learners were encouraged to go to their police station, go inside and talk to the police to understand what is the services that's being provided at your police station, for instance. Do you know where's your nearest clinic? Where is the people of your area going when they're being referred to a hospital, for instance? Who's the GBV organizations that's working in your area? So it's those kind of exercises that we do with young people just to get them to think about the circumstances that we're currently living in, with a high number of violence that we see in our communities, and the high numbers of rape and gender-based violence.
Sure. It's a lot of stuff you deal with, eh?
Yes, it is.
Sure. So what are some of the communication strategies that Sonke uses to create social change?
I think the first thing to remember or to think about when it comes to social change, it's not something that's going to happen overnight, because it's got to do with a person's way how he grew up or she grew up to believe and to do things a certain way. It's got to do with a person's attitude, and that cannot be changed overnight. It takes years for some people. But I think the most important thing for us as the organization is to plant the seed, to get people think about the truth about gender-based violence and violence in general. If you were doing these things, you now know after you went through the workshop it's wrong. So what is it that you can do? So at the end of sessions, we always look at what is it that I can do to start the change. Because a lot of times we want to go outside and go talk about the change that we want to see, but inside our own households, that is where violence is also happening. That is where gender-based violence is taking place. And we first have to start small, start within your house. Start, for instance, to speak out. If my dad, for instance, speaks or shout at my mom, for instance, that is a safe environment or could be a safe environment where you could say something. And it doesn't have to be when your dad is shouting at the time. You can wait till maybe the person calms down and then have a talk about that. But you have to start at home. You have to clean your own house before you go outside into the communities. And then we also talk about what are some other things that you can do. You have to learn about gender-based violence, understand the facts, understand what is your rights when you go to the police station, for instance, to go and lay a claim. Speak out against gender-based violence when there's a family function, for instance, and one of the adults is speaking or promoting violence, for instance. That is a perfect opportunity for you to talk or to speak out against it, and that is your contribution that you can make. And then you can take it further to your classroom, for instance, and then you can take it further to the community. So those are some of the things that we hope people are starting small to address gender-based violence and violence in general in our communities.
Sure. So how can we initiate these strategies within our daily lives to make our society sustainable for both men and women and children?
Oh, that is a very difficult question, because at the end of the day, I think once you went through some sessions, because I think that is the key thing, you have to read material if you're not joining a workshop. And where you at, you can also check who's the organization, because Sonke is not the only organization that is doing work or is teaching or doing education around gender-based violence. Find out in your communities who's the organizations that's doing that work and invite them for sessions so you can get to know more about gender-based violence, because once you know about gender-based violence and what it is and what you should not be doing, that is where you can start with yourself first. And once you've started with yourself first, and then you can start to reach other people, especially when things happen in your company that promotes violence.
Sure. So Before I let you go, any future events that Sonke has planned for the rest of the year?
Oh, there is always a lot of events that is happening. And you can always check at our website, or you have our Woodstock office number. There will always be someone that can put you into contact with the Community Education and Mobilization Unit. Our busiest time is normally during 16 days of activism, although we promote for 365 days of activism, because we do this in any case throughout the year. But right now, currently in South Africa, that is the 16 days identified, so that's a very busy period, and we work with everyone. We get such a lot of requests. We always work with government departments, CBOs, NGOs, and the different projects also run activities on their own to speak out against violence and gender-based violence during that period.
Sure. Okay. And also for anyone who wants to help out or get involved with the organization, how can they reach out to you?
So you can either check on our website, or you can phone our Woodstock office where I am based. The number is 021 423 7088. And then you can just call us, and we can also let you know how you can get involved, because we do have about 6 community action teams in the different areas within the metropole, because we work within the metropole currently, and then we can refer you to join some of these community action teams, and then we take it from there.
Okay. Just one more time, can you give them the phone number?
It's 021 423 7088.
There we go. Friederlin, before I let you go, any words of encouragement that you would like to give the people out there?
I think the most important thing is that I believe that no one is born violent. And I think as time goes on, what we see in our communities and what we live with every day sometimes reflects who we become. But I'm saying that should not have to be the case. You don't have to do what others are doing. You can decide for yourself, especially if you're an adult. You have to make the right choices. You have to make the right decisions. You know when you are perpetrating violence, and you should stop about that. Get to understand what not to do. If you need help, there is help for people that feel that they cannot control when they become violent or their emotions. There is a lot of support of organizations that works in the field. And if we all work together to stop violence against women and children, then I think our rape cases will become less. The violence that we see in our communities will become less. Because I think right now women are very anxious about what is happening in this country. It feels like not enough is being done by men to support women, but it can be done if you start with yourself.
There we go. Thank you very much, Friederlin.
Pleasure.
Go and have an awesome day further. Once again, thank you very, very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.